morning. Good morning. I know you have all been, seated and standing and refreshed, but I need you to pay close attention to our next speaker. Okay, Mr. Shamim, okay, is here to talk to us about basically your program at Southwest College too.
Well, global entrepreneurship.
Okay, global entrepreneurship. He is one of our guests that will give us a quick introduction or maybe even a detailed overview of global entrepreneurship. Okay, he is one of so many people that we invite to LA Harbor College to be able to give you an overview and also to introduce our students basically to global entrepreneurship, logistics, that area. Okay, and beyond that, okay, I am one of the faculty here at the Business Division over at Harvard College. My name is Professor Ramon Balthazar. And without any further ado, Brandon.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Super. Thank you. All right. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ramon. Appreciate that. So folks, we're going to keep this lively and quick. So I apologize. I'm already telling the video folks in advance that it's going to be hard to keep me in frame. So needless to say, this is really your session, and I want to have a conversation. There's a couple things that I want to tee up for our presentation purposes, but being that we are in a circuitry room, we're hopefully going to shock you with some information, and as we said earlier, we'll keep you grounded as well. So how's that for all the circuitry puns for the day? So needless to say, we really appreciate the opportunity, and Nando, our earlier speaker, did a terrific job of really framing a lot of the key issues. But I'd like to maybe add a little bit of color commentary because I think at the end of the day, Nando and Jim and Amy and Lynn and a number of the wonderful subject matter experts that we have in the room can appreciate that really Southern California and Los Angeles is not only the epicenter, but also is an amazing tapestry of the world's people. Right? That's really in essence. I mean, the U.S. Census always reminds us that the one part of Southern California that is the most interesting, we are the largest epicenter of multicultural peoples, right? So that, I think, underscores that so often what we are talking about in terms of trade, logistics, also has a human side to it. So I want to actually begin with something real quickly. It's a very long, TED Talk, but I want to just give you a really quick snippet of it because I think it gives us an understanding and appreciation of why we all need to, I hope nobody minds the rudeness, shut up and listen.
Everything I do and everything I do professionally, my life has been shaped by 7 years of work as a young man in Africa. From 1971 to 1977, I look young, but I'm not. I worked in Zambia, Kenya, Ivory Coast, Algeria, Somalia, in projects of technical cooperation with African countries. I worked for an Italian NGO. And every single project that we set up in Africa failed. And I was distraught. I thought, age 21, that we Italians were good people and we were doing good work in Africa. Instead, everything we touched, we killed. Our first project, the one that has inspired my first book, Ripples from the Zambezi, was a project where we Italians decided to teach Zambian people how to grow food. So we arrived there with Italian seeds in southern Zambia, in this absolutely magnificent valley, going down to the Zambezi River, and we taught the local people how to grow Italian tomatoes and zucchini. And of course, the local people had absolutely no interest in doing that, so we paid them to come and work, and sometimes they would show up. And we were amazed that the local people in such fertile valley would not have any agriculture. And, but instead of asking them how come they were not growing anything, we simply said, thank God we're here. Just in the nick of time to save the Zambian people from starvation. And of course, everything in Africa grew beautifully, and we had these magnificent tomatoes. In Italy, a tomato will grow to this size, in Zambia, to this size. And we could not believe. And we were telling the Zambians, look how easy agriculture is. When the tomatoes were nice and ripe and red, overnight, some 200 hippos came out from the river, and they ate everything. And we said to the Zambians, my God, the hippos! And the Zambia said, yes, that's why we have no agriculture here. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked.
And there it is, folks. I'm going to end at that punchline, because I think it, in some ways, it hopefully punctuates the point that I want to really impress upon us. Global entrepreneurs are no different than the rest of us. We hopefully are able to perfect our own internal and external listening skills, right? I think this is the great thing about entrepreneurs, is that they not only accept the risk, but they identify what are the best opportunity for taking a risk that's actually going to produce a positive outcome, right? Maybe not so much for our friend Ernesto Ciroli, and I think it hopefully kind of shapes our own thinking of why entrepreneurship is so critical. I'm going to share a little bit. Ramon was kind enough to talk about a regional collaboration that we are all part of, and Harvard College is really, in some ways, where that journey began. So I'll talk about that at the tail end, but I want to just, like I said, tee up a couple of things. So as many of you might be well aware, we are this week in the middle of an exciting World Trade Week activity, series of activities. I don't know how many there are. Bonnie, I don't know how many events are just happening this week alone, right? So it's needless to say, Amy is part of many of those. So needless to say, yesterday some of us in the room were part of this very exciting event. It's really the Oscars for the global trade community. 800 people converged in downtown Los Angeles to hear from some exciting people and to celebrate the achievements of groups and organizations. Amy Gratt from ITEP was a proud recipient of one of those awards, so she will be happy to share more about that. The point that I wanted to share with you is something that was talked about by Alan Horn. And Alan Horn, if you're wondering, for you Jeopardy Trivia Pursuit folks, he's pictured here being interviewed by David Ono, who's a media personality here locally, as many of you know. Alan Horn is the chairman of the board for Disney Studios. But he said something that really struck me yesterday, and that's why I felt compelled, even though our proud mayor was also on stage, and he said some great things. Nando, he didn't do it as justice with all the statistics that you shared. But Alan Horn from Disney said something really remarkable. He said that, in some ways, their strategy of releasing films, and we know Disney Studios now has, come on, name them. Help me out, students in the room. Who does Disney Studios have a stake and interest in? What are some of the big brand names that we're talking about? Does anybody watch movies in the room? You guys are so intensely busy. Professors, take note. They're so busy they can't even watch movies. Okay, anybody heard of Star Wars? Anybody heard of Marvel Comics? Anybody heard of Pixar? Well, guess what? What do they all have in common? Disney. Disney is now the parent of all those brands that we oftentimes forget, right? But he said something really remarkable, that Disney has a tentpole strategy, right? And this tentpole strategy, while he applied it in kind of profitability terms, that Disney takes on the risk of perhaps producing a $200 million minimum budget film and has this global outreach audience, I'd like to approach the tentpole thinking in a little bit of a different way. I think that in so many ways, the tentpole is really what we talked about that Nando reminded us. We are LA region and LA County is not only the tentpole of the people, of the goods movement economy, but it also is the tentpole for the entrepreneurial economy, right? As many of you may know, that Los Angeles arguably is the 4th largest region of entrepreneurial activity in the nation, right? So if you look at those wonderful facts and stats that Nando shared with us in terms of trade, e-commerce, and goods movement, we have to also be reminded about the entrepreneurial economy. And that's why I think it's really, really exciting for us to think about why would we, any of us, want to globalize, right? Southern California is a small, medium-sized business economy. I had the pleasure of working formerly at the U.S. Department of Commerce, and in that capacity, I was always having great conversations with people who were thinking about, we need to have, we need to really improve our operational excellence and our efficiency and our supply chain, whether they were in food, fashion, entertainment, technology, right? The pillars of our economy, especially here in Southern California. And I always used to ask them, well, it's terrific that you want to have these operational excellence strategies. Have you thought about your desire to want to globalize? Have you thought about, going back to your countries of origins? Because many of these entrepreneurs were from, Panama or Mexico or Philippines or China or Korea. And I would ask them very simply, do you know the language? Yes. Do you know the customs? Yes. Do you like the food? Love it. So why is it that perhaps you're not considering going back to your countries of origin and providing some of these great quality goods and services, right? So this is just, and I won't read for you the litany of reasons why you may want to globalize, folks. But part of why I really, impress upon us to think about globalizing your economy is simply this. There is no better time for us to think about how the world is becoming more and more connected. My wife's family was recently visiting. They happen to be from the Inland Empire, so not that part of the family. I'm talking about her Kiwi family members from New Zealand. Right? And they are so excited about something that, quite frankly, I'm going to ask this as a trivial pursuit, and hopefully, Michael, you'll find a giveaway for somebody who can answer this correctly. Now, industry people, you have to stay quiet. I'm going to speak specifically to our student members in the audience. How many of you know about the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership? Raise your hands if you do, if you're a student and know about the TPP. Perfect. Tell us your name.
Spencer.
Spencer.
So I'll say that I don't know the specifics, but
anything, generally.
But from my crazy uncles, I heard them screaming about it all the time. So
okay.
They're not in favor of it. That's all I know.
Terrific, terrific, and I appreciate that honest answer. So I won't press you because crazyuncles.com is actually a great real estate website, yeah, or I think it's richuncles.com. So why do you think that they were screaming crazily about the fact that TPP is going to destroy the planet, or better known as the United States?
It must influence their pockets in some way.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And Spencer, I think your uncles best typify where we as an American society are in understanding global economic thinking, right? I mean, let's play this game for a second. Think on your body. What is your favorite article of clothing? Think for a second the cars you drive and all the parts and supplies that go into either maintaining it or being able to have a drive. Think for a second a game, either a video game or an app that you enjoy. If you're thinking like me, I would say that you have a real high probability that one or more of those parts was either purchased, produced, distributed in a different part of the world. You know, it's really funny. I mean, just recently I was going to help my wife do sunglasses shopping, and that becomes a very expensive endeavor. Some of the ladies in the room know it's just as much of a fashion accessory as jewelry is, right? And she was buying a very, very expensive designer brand eyewear, right? And lo and behold, we look, chiseled on the side was made in China, right? And a super expensive Italian brand at a boutique in Beverly Hills. With all due respect to your uncles, we as an American society do not understand what is happening around the world and what's happening in our own communities, right? So people in New Zealand are excited about the TPP because it's going to open up all sorts of new possibilities and opportunities. And yes, there are plenty of people who said, no, we are going to lose jobs. But have we talked about those opportunities for new direct and indirect jobs that are going to be created by this global economy that we keep talking about? And there's really, if you gloss over all these stats, there's no more remarkable stat in my mind that you should impress upon, is that 95% of the world's population doesn't live in the United States of America. And if I am a business person and I am an entrepreneur who's wanting to take risk, accept that risk, find an opportunity to maximize on my profits, wouldn't you want to give yourself that best opportunity of success with trying to get it in front of the largest number of potential customers or clients? I sure would, right? And I think this is part of why, and there's many, people in the room that could probably make this argument much more eloquently than I can, but I think that it's really, really important as global entrepreneurially minded individuals, we need to accept that risk and even to take that risk. These are some of the market reasons for why we should be thinking about the global economy. But let me put it even in more interesting and real terms. A great company, PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, it does this really interesting annual report of the largest global brands in the world, literally from Pepsi to Google, right? And they all basically have a top 10 priorities for their businesses. Guess what the number 3 priority on that list of global CEOs was? Globalization, good guess. And if we go deeper, connecting it to you, right, the human talent, they want their workforce to have a global mindedness. And here's what they mean with global mindedness. Do you speak another language? Terrific. Do you understand another culture? Even better. Have you lived abroad? You're getting warmer. Have you studied abroad? You're hired. Folks, these are the realities. So we can make political theater and say the world is bad, or we can understand and appreciate maybe why and how we can, as entrepreneurs, change the corners of the world that keep screaming they hate us, right? Well, maybe we need to analyze why we are either hated or loved. Just want to give you some opportunities for those of you who are thinking about not only, and here's the thing that really makes it interesting for our discussion, folks, okay, is whether you work for a big global brand or whether you work for or create your own company, right, it is really, really important for us to start doing the first thing. Actually, all 3 of those things, right? I think it was mentioned earlier, geography, history, and quite frankly, watching, listening, and learning about the news is really, really critical, folks. You know, once again, like I said, I love talking to people from abroad because, you know, it seems like they have a better understanding of what's happening with the news here than we do, right? And it's always very fascinating to see how they interpret the news through their lens versus what we as an American society who believes in free speech and press sometimes only tells us what we want to hear, right? So assessing stability of markets, analyzing, collecting data, looking at country rankings and cultural perceptions, all things that we need to be checking off the box. Question?
What is primary and secondary data? What do you mean by that?
Perfect. So I'm getting a little bit deeper into the to the weeds of this. Primary and secondary data. Primary data is basically you having your own rich experiences. Secondary data is everything else in the world that we know of called news and information. You don't collect it. You basically are reading and interpreting everything else that's happening. So if you have a favorite website, if you have a favorite blog, if you have a favorite search engine, if you have a favorite news channel, that's when we basically are focusing in on secondary data. Primary data is what I was telling you.
You collected yourself.
You collected yourself, and how do you collect it yourself? Searching, experience, right. Having an opportunity to perhaps travel abroad, having an opportunity to perhaps interact with people in your own community that might be from another part of the country. Right? These are ways that you can, just what I was doing in some ways, what I was talking about, talking to my wife's family members from New Zealand and getting a sense of what's the pulse of what's happening literally a couple of oceans away, right? That was me engaging in a very, very simple way of primary data collection. Now, I won't bore you with the details of how you can get more sophisticated, but there's some really great tools out there that you can use. Let me actually get to a more interesting slide, and this kind of goes a little bit deeper into the data, right? So you asked about data and information. By the way, for those of you, another term that has a lot to do with global trade is the notion of big data. Anybody spend time on internet doing any shopping or going to a website to gather information? I think everybody should be raising their hand on that one, right? So guess what? All of those companies, organizations, internet service providers are capturing information about where we are going, our digital footprints, right? So that helps to shape and inform. So we are bathing in data and information, folks. But entrepreneurs are the ones who are able to piece that puzzle to say, aha, this is what I see. So I see that there seems to be a real interesting appetite in China right now for organic dog food. How you get there, I'll leave to your imagination, right? But the ability for you to be able to capture that opportunity is what entrepreneurs are doing, right? They're looking at data and information that oftentimes, seemingly, the rest of us look at a chart and go, okay, time to sleep, our eyes are glazing over, right? Flip the page, please, flip the screen, let's go on to something more interesting, you know. But this is what we want to think about, right? How do you make use of the information and data? So top countries, indexes in terms of their ability. Look at the ease of doing business. The ease of doing business really connects well with another index that a lot of people forget living in the United States. The U.S. Department of Commerce produces another wonderful tool, the corruption index, right? How corrupt is the national government and how many people you have to provide an incentive financially to get your project from point A to point B, right? So I won't bore you with how some of these countries stack up, and let me just say, the United States is not as low on that list as you may think it is. I won't That's a spoiler alert. I won't let you. I'll let you look it up on that. But it is fascinating to see some of the countries that are here. You know. Now let me advance the slide. So pick a favorite country on this side, right? Pick a favorite country. And by the way, bless you. Look at those darn Kiwis. They keep showing up again, right? Look at New Zealand. Look at how high they are in the chart. Top country index. I'm telling you, my wife's family members are onto something. So, fear of failure. This is a really, really fascinating thing that I think as entrepreneurs, we sometimes forget. You know, there's a lot of conversation and research about what makes entrepreneurs different. And are they truly different, right? The whole kind of similar to leaders. Are they born, or does society create them? Same conversation could probably move over to the entrepreneurship space, right? Are they born, or do they have some special gene to make them want to accept risk and say, we're going to go it on our own, right? Well, Mark Zuckerberg is not at that age. I don't know if Steve Jobs would give anybody permission to do an autopsy on his brain, right? So we can't get into their minds, and we can't figure that out anatomically. But what I can tell you that entrepreneurs are really, really good at is their ability for risk tolerance. They have a high level of risk tolerance. And one could argue they also have perhaps a higher threshold for not having a fear of failure, right? So believe it or not, our government and many different governments through the World Bank and many other sources actually index this, a fear of failure. Wow, interesting. So something that entrepreneurs are really, really good at having, you know, a certain threshold for is something that we can actually study and analyze. Which countries in the global economy have a certain appreciation, either a high or a low fear of failure threshold? So folks, look at this for a second. Once again, let's pick these apart for a minute. I'll skip over the sub-Saharan Africa. Let's stick to our closest friends, Latin American, Caribbean economies. 28% had fear of failure, which would prevent them from starting a venture. Fear of failure generally increases as one moves from early stage to advanced stages of development. Anybody remember what happened to the Greek economy? What happened to our Greek friends?
Got too big.
They got too big, and many of the American banks that were providing them, you know, assets and asset management and financing. Anyway, Greece and Italy, two of our favorite tourism countries, showed the highest fear of failure. You know who's leading the way back to the Greek economy having a resurgence? It's not American big multinational brands, General Motors and the like, that are reinvesting in the economy and trying to spur it. It's Greek entrepreneurs from colleges and universities. The Swedish consulate in Greece has actually opened up a whole business incubator for our friends in Greece. So folks, this is what I want you to be thinking about as we come to the end of the line, is I hope that I've given you some opportunities for thinking, right, to just tee up. So we here at Harvard College are committed, and we have a number of people here in the room that I think can speak more to this, but the Global Entrepreneur Program and Certificate is coming. So for those of you in the room that want to learn more about it, we really, really want to encourage you to think about it. And as I promised, one last plug, right? This is something that all of you in the room are invited to participate. There is a brightly colored flyer in the exhibit area, a regional summit that is going to talk about some of the issues and much more than we said today. So many of the people in the room are representing this. So I'm going to stop there, and if I think we're out of time, Michael, for questions, but I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes afterwards.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.